This college canteen is mind-blowing. I filled a whole tray of food and turned to leave, but immediately bumped into someone. No way! Judy Harrison! She's the one who put my father in jail. The plates crashed to the floor. It all started that morning when my mom decided to drop me off for my first class at college. We were on our way and suddenly Dad's favorite song started playing. I was so sad that he wasn't with us right now. I offered to visit him, but Mom was against it, said that she hadn't forgiven him yet. Are you serious? There's nothing to forgive. Mom was always too hard on my father. Out of resentment, I stamped the car door and walked to college. I thought about how my mother often didn't understand me. My dad shared all my hobbies, including my love for technology. He's the only reason I got into this college. But for 3 years, Dad has been rotting in prison for nothing. And all because of this Judy Harrison. She accused my father of molesting her. Dad denied everything. Of course, he couldn't do that. She just set him up, but the jury didn't believe him. But they believed Judy's tear-stained face. And now my dad will spend 10 years behind bars. How can I accept this? All these years, I've longed for justice. So I was standing in front of Judy in the college cafeteria. The shock made the words stick in my throat. And I shout out into the hall. Charlie, my friend, caught up with me. I told him everything, barely able to contain my anger. I was angry with myself for not telling Harrison everything right away, but then I realized it was for the best. I don't think she recognized me. This was my chance to get Judy to tell the truth to the police. By the end of the day in college, I had a plan in mind getting this Judy out. First, Charlie would hit on her and gain her trust, and then lure her to a secluded place. There she would tell the whole truth. An abandoned construction site nearby was perfect for this. Charlie refused, so I had to push him. Well, his strict mother still didn't know how bikers stole his money, or whose cigarettes she found under the sofa. I had to cover for Charlie all the time. What did he do for me? After these arguments, Charlie gave up. The game started. We agreed that he would try to get Judy to talk. He would sit down and ask for help with his homework. I needed him to pick her up and ask her out. However, Harrison only explained the tasks to him and then ran away under any pretext. So, I told Charlie to change his tactics, to tell her more personal stories to ingratiate himself with her, and it worked. They gradually grew closer, but Judy did not agree to dates. We had to take a risk. Charlie climbed up to her on the 4th floor with a huge bouquet and begged her to give him a chance. Otherwise, he would jump. At this point, Harrison could not resist and agreed to go with Charlie to the construction site to watch the sunset. Yes! For 2 months, while Charlie was getting close to Judy, I worked through every point of the plan and completely gave up on studying. In parallel, I collected the necessary props for the abandoned construction. I bought a second-hand loudspeaker, printed out photos from the investigation, and made a real prison out of the abandoned building. It took a lot of time to install speakers and cameras all over the construction site. My dad taught me how to deal with technology. I called Charlie the day before, and we discussed all the details. And he said he'd be there if anything happened. I could have sworn that Judy Harrison would remember this date for the rest of her life. When they came, I was already in the excavator's cab, where my laptop was receiving images from every camera on the construction site. I could direct the entire show. Pale Charlie ushered Judy in, locked the door, and disappeared. "Charlie, what's going on?" was all she could say. "Ha, now you'll find out." I gave her instructions over the loudspeaker in the warder's distorted voice while I watched her from the control room. "Judy Harrison, the truth hall is waiting for you." She jumped up in surprise. Harrison lunged for the iron door, but it was locked. She backed away from the passageway and ran down the hall. Judy looked around in confusion. Photos of Eden prisoners were plastered on the walls, and terrible screams were coming from the speakers. In parallel, I conducted an interrogation about the events of that evening. She didn't answer me. just staggered on in silence, a grimace of fear on her face. So, she reached the climax. Prison. It was a decorated room with skulls where a wooden box stood alone in the center. You have been found guilty of libel against Henry Chapman, I concluded, and you will be punished as you deserve. Come to the box now. Then the gate behind her slammed shut, and the room filled with blood-red light. Harrison turned pale. Please let me out, she screamed. I'm claustrophobic. I was silent for a few minutes while Harrison howled. Finally, she went to the box and took out a prison uniform with her tag on it. You take the rap. 10 years. By this time, I had come down from my hiding place and out to Judy. I'm Henry Chapman's daughter, and you lied about his good name, and now you're not leaving here until you agreed to tell the police. Harrison suddenly began to choke. She turned white and fainted. It couldn't be worse. I was furious, but I didn't want her to check out here. I had to help her up and literally drag her out into the hall. Suddenly, with a deft movement, she snatched the radio from me and pushed me aside with all her strength. I just caught a glimpse of Judy pulling the lever with a sly smile. A huge ball on a chain whizzed past me and knocked down the walls. The floor broke and I fell down somewhere. What kind of joke is this? I landed on soft backs and there was a rustling and squeaking sound around me. Oh God, rats! It was useless to call for help. Charlie was in the other wing. Then I heard Harrison yell that she knew everything. Judy knew our plan from somewhere. Now it's my turn to do the quest. She hissed sarcastically. What a stinker. How did I fall for her tricks? Imagine coming back from a party with your brother. Harrison whispered ominously. You must be thinking, which brother am I talking about? You don't have one. But I have. More precisely, what's left of it. Harrison's voice broke and I felt uneasy. So it's late evening. You two go together. And then the car crashes at us. Suddenly, I was blinded by a bright flash. The spotlight hit me right in the face. A drunk driver hits your brother at full speed. Fred was in intensive care. Doctors fought for his life for several days. And then they said that he would always be disabled. My brother had to forget about his career as an athlete. Judy said with pain. I want to show you something. Harrison approached me and handed me the photo. It showed the black Jeep with the license plate ABC 4530. Oh my God! Dad, I could not resist and began to cry. The police didn't believe me. Harrison continued. He got out of it. He found people who allegedly saw his car in another place and the photo was recognized as fake. Then I decided to sort it out myself. She took a picture of Dad while he was alone and made some dirt out of it. This time, cops believed her because she managed to think it all out. Time seemed to have stopped. Harrison didn't say anything, but I just stood there, clutching the photo. You're lying. I screamed and lunged for her. It was going to be a fight, but Charlie came running and pulled me away. It turned out that he had long suspected something was wrong, but could not get through the rebel. He asked me to calm down. The hell with it. This hypocrite didn't dare slander my father. Harrison stared at me, then turned and left without a word. I didn't expect this. I went to jail right after that damn construction site. I told my dad what I had heard, word for word, and waited with bated breath for his answer. Come on, tell me. But he was silent, his head bowed. So it happened like this. My vision went dark. I was hoping that my father would refute everything, but all he said was that it was a difficult period in his life. How could he deceive me? I don't remember how I left or how long I wandered the streets. I hated everyone, deciding not to go home. I went to the construction site and stayed there until nightfall. That's where she found me, Judy. She said she was just trying to get justice. Of course, I returned the favor. I felt sorry for her brother, but I didn't know how to help. After the conversation, we both felt better. The next day, I looked for Charlie. However, in college, I immediately got to the principal. It turned out that I failed the test, and at this rate, I could lose the scholarship. I was so ashamed that with this stupid revenge, I completely gave up on my studies. I also felt guilty about Charlie. I noticed that he liked Harrison, but he was literally torn between us. Well, I told him, since Judy and I had made up, I didn't mind him hitting on her. I realized how important it was to be able to forgive, especially if you were loved. Yes, it's not easy for me to accept my father's lies, but I have to meet him again and try to make things right. And I need to explain everything to my mother. Maybe now she can forgive him. After all, he only has us now.